In front of all these people, you're gonna pull out a gun and you're gonna shoot an unarmed man.
Raylan. You do a good job of hiding it, and I suppose most folks don't see it, but honestly, you're the angriest man I have ever known.
You take advantage of this situation, I'll hunt you down like a dog.
What's it like, holding someone's fate in your hands?
Admittedly, not every show I talk about on Lost and Found is a series for everyone. Some of the recommendations might be too niche, some might not be the same genre some of the tots are interested in. Every now and then a show pops up that for me defies what genre, what niche, and just deserves to be watched for just being plain good. FX's Western crime drama, Justified, is that show and today's point of topic. Justified is based on a series of short stories written by novelist Elmore Leonard. Leonard specialized in creating Western fiction earlier in his career before turning to crime fiction and suspense thrillers, with the majority of his work being adapted for the big screen. This includes Get Shorty, 3:10 to Yuma, and Rum Punch, which would become Quentin Tarantino's film Jackie Brown. Justified in particular was adapted from a series of short stories based on the character of Raylan Givens, most notably the short story titled Fire in the Hole. Justified follows Timothy Olyphant as the character of Raylan Givens.
Oh my God, Raylan!
Raylan Givens! Raylan Givens. Raylan Givens. Raylan Givens. Why, U.S. Deputy Marshal Raylan Givens played a pivotal role in my story.
A tough deputy U.S. Marshal who enforces his own brand of justice in Kentucky, specifically in and around his hometown of Harlan. Givens is tasked as a deputy in Miami before pulling on an infamous gangster in public. The action forces Givens to be retasked to a different location, this time an office in Lexington, Kentucky. Givens soon finds out that the area he once lived in is now developed into quite the criminal underworld, and he will be in the center of it, whether he wants to be or not. Justified's production began in July of 2009, with longtime writer, producer, and director Graham Yost creating the series. Yost has a detailed filmography including Speed, Broken Arrow, Hard Rain, Sneaky Pete, The Pacific, The Americans, and perhaps my favorite series of all time, Band of Brothers.
Captain Sobel?
Major Winters?
Captain Sobel. We salute the rank, not the man.
Majority of Justified would be shot in various small towns in California, using the renowned industry Epic camera. The push to have the show shot on such cameras would create a cinematic look that not only set the atmosphere, but also is visually stunning to look at. Casting is central to the show's success, with longtime actor Timothy Olyphant leading this talented group as Raylan Givens.
You make me pull, I'll put you down.
His longtime rival, Boyd Crowder, would be played by FX resident, former The Shield actor, Walton Goggins. Goggins was ironically written to die in the pilot episode, but test audiences liked Goggins' performance too much.
Now I know people like you are used to taking people like me. But there comes a point when people like me can't take any more taking.
So, from season 2 onward, the character became a central part of the show.
You ever been to Detroit?
I have. I don't believe Mr. Crowder's ever been outside Kentucky.
Oh, well, I have been to Iraq. It's a lot like Detroit, except you have better music.
The talented cast includes Nick Searcy as Chief Deputy Art Mullen, Joel Carter as Ava Crowder, Jacob Pitts as Deputy Tim Gutterson, Erica Tazel as Deputy Brooks, Jerry Burns as Wynn Duffy, who also played Ansel on Burn Notice, and Natalie Z as Raylan's ex-wife, Winona Hawkins. Justified is a Western through and through. The show does have multiple genre tie-ins, including, of course, crime drama, thriller, and film noir aspects that keep the show from being a standard cowboys and robbers affair. Raylan Givens is written superb.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Quit
Just keep it down a little bit.
Why would we do that?
Because I didn't order assholes with my whiskey.
Wait, why did you throw a bullet at him?
I was trying to make a point.
Which was?
Get the hell out of Kentucky and don't come back.
How was throwing a bullet at him going to accomplish that?
Told him the next one might be coming a little faster.
Enforcing his own brand of justice that makes for compelling television. While being the show's central protagonist, it's often easy to see where the line is crossed.
What the hell?
Whoa, okay, I'm just gonna ask you one question. Do you know how a firearm works?
What?
The show isn't apologetic for it, but also makes most of an intelligent audience, forcing you to decide if that decision was right or wrong. It doesn't necessarily make Raylan a good guy or a bad guy, but a person with his own motives. Throughout the series, Raylan battles with multiple crime families in Kentucky, a place written to be a near hellhole. The most important rivalry is between him and ex-mining buddy, now foe, Boyd Crowder. Boyd and Raylan battle through the 6-season series in what can only be described as an elegant dance. Scenes between them are poetry.
Now I know what it was like for you, growing up in that household, having to watch your daddy rough up your mama.
Lord, we're not talking about my
I can only imagine what it must have been like as a little boy having to see something like that, not being able to do anything about it.
Battling back and forth between various motives and themes, while boiling down to the same conclusion. The two aren't much different than each other. In fact, the phrase I kept coming to was two sides of the same coin. Raylan, for his worth, on the surface, is clearly the show's good guy, but he does enough to make it justifiable to be against him. Boyd, for his worth, is clearly the show's villain, but does enough to justify rooting for him in the end. Yost and his team, along with fantastic writing material, make each character's motives crystal clear. These motives make us, the audience, easier to understand and therefore root for characters we traditionally wouldn't. Justified could have taken the easy out and written these Kentucky figures as nothing more than hillbilly idiots. Sure, the show doesn't necessarily write away from that with beloved characters like Dewey Crow, but you find out within moments of the first episode that just isn't the case.
At any point, when you were looking at that gun thug, did you see your daddy's face?
For all the broken phrases, questionably pronounced words, and morally ambiguous decisions, a lot of the show's villains are vastly intelligent. This doesn't just make them more compelling or interesting, but bigger threats to Raylan's existence, which is tested every episode. Technically speaking, Justified is a sharp show. Writing is always tight, seemingly interweaving smart dialogue with witty outbursts that put a smile on your face. Shots are beautifully set up, using the best of lighting and color trickery to make Kentucky feel like the humid mess it is. Several shots, particularly in the last season, season 6, could be framed in the Metropolitan.
That belongs in a museum!
Performances are outstanding, with most of the cast relying on a southern twang that feels authentic.
You ought to pick up where we left off in the woods, Raylan.
Don't suppose you got any ideas where Baptiste is, huh?
And at times, a bit too on the nose.
First seasons of shows often are finding their feet trying to work out exactly what they are, you know.
This here pool was my dream. I ain't selling it for no $20.
No one knew what to do. Like literally no one knew. Everybody kind of freaked out. And
now I want you to meet my new friend, Daryl Crow Jr.
I believe they really did have their own version of a true romantic love story.
She brought it in on a foam head, put it up in my chair like that was a real person. You believe that?
The first season did an excellent job of building up the remaining 5 seasons, with each character, villain, or central theme being established before they are all finally dealt with. Shows like Burn Notice, it always seemed like there was a never-ending string of villains to go through. Justified establishes this in the first season by nailing down who is and isn't in the way of justice. Confident storytelling leads you to believe some intense situations will end in guns blazing, only for characters to shake hands, tip the point of their hats, and go in opposite directions. Smooth talking, chuckle-worthy conversations will end with characters pulling guns, gritting their teeth for some sort of advantage over their opponent. Each episode leaves you gripping for more before you made the mistake I did, binging through the 6-season series in a matter of 2 weeks. The series received consistent critical acclaim, primarily in the 2 lead performances of Oliphant and Goggins, the impressive art direction, the unique directing, and top-tier guest talents. The show was nominated for 8 Emmys, winning 2 for the performance performances of Margot Martindale and Jeremy Davies. Justified would debut to the network's highest viewership since The Shield, with 4.2 million viewers. It would go on to be consistent with an average around 2.5 million viewers. The network highly incentivized Yost and Oliphant, both of which executive produced the show, to continue with the 7th season. Yost felt like the biggest concern of the show was to continue on and run out of story, risking repeating their work. The show would conclude with the 78th episode of the 6th season, an outstanding piece of work that ends on what I could only describe as the perfect series ender. Justified maintained consistent high praise through its run, despite lower viewership, with the majority of the show being in the upper 80s on Metacritic. Timothy Oliphant received incredible praise through its run.
Yeah, well, he might not, but I will.
Put your guns down, both of you.
Primarily from the series' novelist, Leonard, who said Oliphant was the kind of guy I saw when I wrote his lines. Justified's dissection of the criminal underworld and this small town area of Kentucky is some of the best world building you'll find on television. Unfortunately, despite the high praise I've given the show, I do have an issue or two with it. The first issue would primarily be about Jacob Pitts and Erica Tazel, who played deputies Tim Gutterson and Rachel Brooks respectively.
Did you consider what might have happened if you'd missed?
Can't carry a tune. I don't know how to shoot a basketball, and my handwriting is barely legible, but I don't miss.
Throughout the series, they provide some relief to the sledgehammer that is Raylan, oftentimes providing witty humor or an interesting dissection into Raylan's issues from a more relaxed side. However, throughout the show's run, they remain heavily underutilized. As each season went by, I kept wanting for more Gutterson and Raylan interactions, but never quite getting it. I kept begging until the show was over, and I was pretty disappointed. The fact of the matter is, Justified has a lot of moving parts, with dozens of characters, tons of scenic locations, and each character carrying a unique motive. The show does give you some time with unique characters like Jerry Burns' Win Duffy, a notorious kingpin thrusted into multiple situations and soon becoming a friend to the US Marshal Department and what can only be described as an odd pairing. The show doesn't hold back on throwing multiple storylines, heavy themes, and serious consequences, but it's easy to follow and rewards the faithful watcher. I just wish some characters, like the previously mentioned Gutterson and Brooks, received some more love. The other issue, once again, isn't really an issue, but is certainly worth noting. Raylan is a wonderful character, written with clear faults that make him stand head and shoulders above other Western gunslingers. That being said, the character remains static throughout the course of the series. Raylan's faults are basically pronounced from the first episode, with his ex-wife addressing him as the angriest man she knows. Throughout its run, you hope Raylan takes a step back from law enforcement and pursue a life we would all want him to do. He just doesn't. It doesn't necessarily make Raylan a bad guy, or an unlikable guy, but clearly makes him a stubborn bastard that won't get out of his way to change. That being said, the show does make notice of some of his changes, and particularly without getting into spoilers on how the first episode begins and how the final episode ends. It's just several key moments happen in the show, moments that would make most people consider their route in life and course adjust. Raylan, he just continues to go into everything with a stubborn alignment that might lose a viewer or two.
Having a child, they say it changes a man. You think that's true?
Guess we'll see.
Justified is one of the best shows I've ever seen.
Anyone but me just plain tired of the bullshit burdens of Southern hospitality.
Well, now, easy, baby. Ain't no reason to be rude to an old friend.
You want to have chicken dinner with your old friend, who barged in without benefit of invitation, by the way.
The dialogue might be one of the best on television.
Christ! There are cops outside!
That's right, they're outside.
You're a cop!
Deputy U.S. Marshal.
Raylan, you just can't come in here and shoot me because you feel like it?
Why not?
Weaving in and out of confident pacing that makes each episode blow by. Harlan County, where a majority of the show takes place, becomes a character as central as the main himself. When the show gets you to settle into a comfortable place, it lights up with intense action scene or explosive sequences that remind you nobody in Harlan is safe. Hell, Justified is so intense that by the finale episode, I have wondered if Raylan, the main character himself, would survive. I won't spoil that, but it is certainly worth noting that the show's precision into the crime thriller genre is some of the best on television. Like the characters in Justified, it is so easy to see this as nothing but hillbilly stories, crushing against unchained law enforcement officers.
Meaning that there were things wrong with the other ones you've done?
I'll tell you the only thing wrong with this shooting. She reacted faster than I did.
And like the show's characters, you'd be wise to respect them because you'll find yourself quite surprised at this simply fantastic show.
Stan Boyd, you take advantage of this situation, I'll hunt you down like a dog. If I'm not dead, and you're not dead.
You afraid you give me a gun, I'd turn it on you.
Justified is a show you'll be better off having in your life. I highly recommend it. Hey Tots, thanks for watching. Shout out to these amazing Tots, Mouse Pounder, Ilana September, and LaShawn Johnson for making sure this video is possible. Thanks to all those that support me on Patreon and all you kind enough to watch right now. I'll see you all in the next video.